So yes, welcome to our Lunch and Learn webinar series where we tell you all about what's going on here at Compleat and how you can get the most out of your iCompleat subscription. Today's session will cover how to improve your capture processing to further enhance your automation. Today we're excited to welcome Enterprise Rent-A-Car to the Compleat ecosystem as one of our trusted suppliers. Enterprise is a worldwide leader in the car rental industry and a household name for frequent travellers and road trippers. They offer local and airport rentals, car sharing, exotic car hire and van hire, along with its Flex eRent division, which provides business solutions for long-term commercial vehicle and specialised fleet needs. By being part of the iCompleat ecosystem, they help our customers make smarter car rental decisions directly from inside iCompleat. So today's agenda, we are going to be talking about obviously the invoice capture system. We will cover just some demo of some of the functions and features that are available, and obviously covering some tips, and then we'll have a little look at the Compleat ecosystem that we just talked about with Enterprise, and then I will be able to open the floor up for any questions that you have, and hopefully we'll be able to answer as many as possible. Obviously, this is me. I'm a software implementation consultant here at Compleat. For those of you who have been on these lunch and learns before, you're all very good at this, but just to recap, if all microphones could be muted, obviously apart from my own. If you have any questions, please do put them forward. You'll find on your Teams window there should be a Q&A box. There is a chat window, but there is also a Q&A box. If you pop them in the Q&A box, that will ensure that we can get to them quicker. And as I said, we'll try and answer as many as we can. We are recording the session, and each of you will get a link to the recording, as well as a little guide as well about the capture system. We'll ensure that comes out to you as well. So we will jump straight into the slide that is missing from my system, but it's a little bit weird. It's one of those things. But no, the capture system is basically the system that is used to mine all the data from the invoices. So the idea is that your suppliers would be sending in those invoices into the capture system. So some of you will have, or indeed most of you will have, a capturemybills.com email address, and that will ensure that the invoice comes through to us and into the capture system, where it can then be mined and then downloaded into your Compleat implementation. So what it's doing when the invoice comes in is it's obviously looking at that invoice. Now, the first thing that it's going to look at is the email address that that invoice has come from. So it's going to be looking to see if it's come from a supplier that we already have onboarded into the capture system, or if it's come from yourselves, or if it's a new supplier that needs to be created within capture itself. Now, if the invoice has come directly from your supplier, that means that capture can very quickly determine this invoice is from Staples. I know what to do with it. I will extract the information. I will process it. If the invoice has come from yourselves, then what the system has to do is it has to try to then understand, is that actually an invoice from the customer, who could in turn be a supplier to a different customer, or is it the case that the invoice has been forwarded on? So whilst it's come from your email address, it's actually originally come from Screwfix. And if that's the case, that can cause just a slight delay in processing that invoice, because it needs to understand where the invoice originated from to then apply the template. So first tip is, if you can get your suppliers to send the invoices directly to your capturemybills.com email address, then so much the better. You stand good chance of having them processed quickly. Obviously, there are other things that come into play, and we'll be covering those off. The Next thing that will help is, and sorry, just to cover on that actual point, some of you may be using what we call an auto forward. So your suppliers can send the emails still to yourselves, but then they would be auto forwarded onto Capture. That's absolutely fine. That's the same as the supplier sending it directly, because what happens is through that process, the auto forward retains who originally sent it. And so we'll be receiving it as if it had come directly from Screwfix or Enterprise Rent-A-Car. So auto forward is fine. Having it sent directly is fine. It's if it's being sent to you first and then you are manually forwarding it on, that can cause a bit of a delay. The other thing to consider is if the invoice is well formatted. So for some of our customers out there, we appreciate that some suppliers will be able to send a preset, the same layout each and every time, which is absolutely fantastic for Capture because it knows exactly where to pick things up. But there are times when there are handwritten invoices, and that can cause some delays in the processing, because what the system will do is it deploys its AI functionality to go through, and it knows that the invoice number will always be top left, the totals will always be bottom right, so on and so forth. But if it's a handwritten invoice, those details can change and move about depending on obviously who's written it and where they are at the time they wrote it, etc. So if it's a handwritten invoice, then what the system will do is deploy its OCR, optical character recognition technology, and it will then try and understand what is on that invoice. And if we're talking about kind of what is on the invoices, I've got here prepped an invoice, two invoices. The one on the right is what we would be deeming as kind of a perfect example. So what it's doing is it's displaying everything in a set format. It's clearly labeled everything. Capture will be able to go in, record that the reference or the item code is stored in this first column. The description is stored around here, prices, etc. around here, and it will store that and know for next time to be able to quickly extract the invoice. Another key thing with this particular invoice on the right hand side is that it is what we refer to as an intelligent PDF. Now what I mean by that is if I hold my mouse and click and move my cursor, you can see it's picking up the individual letters. It's recognizing that that is a P, that is a 0, etc. So being an intelligent PDF, it means that the system can very quickly go through, read what's on there, and extract the information that it's looking for. The only thing that's potentially missing from here is where we've got the order number. What would really be helpful is if this supplier can put either order or order number, what have you, and then a colon, just to help us to, or help Capture to understand that that's the order number. But other than that, it seems to have everything on there and it's in the correct format. The only other possible thing is if they are providing numbers that end in a 0 or have multiple zeros in there. If it's intelligent, then that's absolutely fine. However, if we look across on the left-hand side, because this is a scan, and as you can see, it's got some coffee cup stains on there, some scribbles. The system's not going to be able to easily read all of these. And in fact, if I hover over the text, you can see it's not picking up the text the same way as it did on my smart PDF. It's because this is an unintelligent PDF. And so what it's going to have to do, because this has been scanned in, it's going to have to deploy that OCR, optical character recognition technology, to understand, is that a letter A? What's this? Is this something I need to be worried about? It's not coming up too clearly, but I did actually rip it here as well. Is that rip a letter? Is it part of the logo? It's we can see the line here is going through the word paper, so it's going to have to try and understand, Is that a word? Is that something I need to worry about? Is that a 0? Is it an O? All these different kinds of things. And so it's not to say that the system can't read it. It can, but obviously it's going to take a bit longer because it needs to understand more information. Are these areas I need to be concerned with or not? Now, if we're looking at an intelligent PDF document coming through, then you'll find more often than not that they'll get processed very quickly within an hour. These sort of documents could take up to 16 or 24 hours. Now, standard level SLAs are 24 hours in total, but that's obviously worst case scenario. So if you are looking to streamline and have as many invoices automatically coming through as quickly as possible, then the key is to have suppliers send them directly into Capture. So your capturemybills.email address, or have them auto forward from yourselves and have them in a smart PDF format. Now, when we're talking about handwritten invoices, obviously I fully appreciate that that's not always going to be possible. The one-man bands, the window cleaners, etc., they're not going to necessarily be able to print off an invoice. However, if they are able to complete an Excel template, which we can provide, just drop support a message and they'll be able to provide that template to you. Capture's already been preset with the information on these templates, and we'll be able to very quickly bring the information in that way. So again, if you wanted to speed it up, if you encourage the suppliers, if you're going to provide handwritten, just type out in this spreadsheet for us. That'd be fantastic. Send it in, and again, it'll give Capture a quicker time. Allow Capture to process it in a quicker time. So yeah, it's really down to the format of the invoice, whether it's intelligent or not. If the suppliers are sending invoices with attachments as well, obviously those attachments though that would then need to be processed, and system decide whether it's attaching or sending that attachment with the invoice. And the size of those attachments can cause problems as well. So if it's a large attachment, that's going to take longer to process and may actually end up being rejected. If it is password protected, either the email or the attachments within there, the invoice, if that's password protected, obviously that will get rejected as well. Now, each of you should have a rejection email that has been configured in Capture, so anything that the system cannot process will be sent out to that error email address. Now, if at any point Capture reads, whether intelligent or non-intelligent, if it's reading the invoice and it's not sending through the correct information, so for example, if it hadn't picked up this description correctly, or indeed if it really couldn't read the fact that this over here on the left hand side says paper, if it had tried to do something funny with this and add that as part of a total or something, these are all things that we would like to hear about, we need to hear about. Those of you who have experience with iCompleat and the processing of invoices, you'll know that you can't actually amend the template that Capture is using. That's something that we back at HQ can do for you. And even if it's something as simple as it's not picking up the order number, but you can see it there and you're manually typing in that order number, please do let us know, because we would like to have the system so it does pick up that order number for you, so it's saving you that work of having to keep manually typing it in. So if anything is coming through incorrectly, just log a support ticket, let us know, we will get it amended and we will reprocess that document for you. Now, one of the tools that you can use to help you with understanding what's currently being processed is we've got this function within the system called Invoices Extracting. Now, the Invoices Extracting is a tile that is made available to you through the user permissions. So for those of you who are admin users, or those of you who'd like to take any notes to forward onto your admin team, if you don't have access to this, it would be going to configuration and then to users, and then within the user record itself, you will find there is an access invoices processing toggle switch. Switch that on and that will give you access to the tile. And what the tile does, if we click on to invoices extracting, that will open up a separate browser tab for us, which will then take us to, for myself, what looks like an empty screen. Once it comes through and refreshes, there we go. And you'll see here that I have no documents pending. So what I'm going to do is break one of the cardinal rules of live demonstrations. I have here an email, an invoice to my site, which I'm going to send. And we're going to try and see a live instance of that at least come through onto the system. So by default, this system, the invoices extraction, will filter to processing. And as we sit here and wait, we can just refresh the screen and that email will go and hit the capture system and should then pop up in here to tell us that it is being, or rather in the process of being processed. What we can do is I can change this though to show me everything that has been processed already. And if I click on filter, that's going to show me everything. I've got a couple that I did yesterday as different testing, etc. And that will show us what has historically come in and what its status was, where it's gone to, where it came from. We've got a view attachment icon here so we can see what the invoice itself is. And one of the key things with this is if we wanted to view that attachment, we could use that to then download or print and go and key in manually to the finance platform if we needed to process it quicker, if it needed kind of immediate payment, for example. But in here, what we've got is our date received and the target extraction date. Now, as I said before, standard SLAs are 24 hours, so we can see we've got 24 hours between these timescales here, but this is just the worst case scenario, extraction date and time. If we go right across to the far right hand corner, right hand side, sorry, you can see that we've got the export created. So whilst the invoice was received, for example, at 8:25 in the morning, it was processed and extracted at 8:42. So only a few minutes there to actually extract that one. So this is kind of the key column that you can look at to see how long it's taking. But again, how long it takes depends on all of the factors as we discussed before, whether it is a an intelligent PDF, whether it's a known layout, and everything on there is easy to read and understand. And in fact, there we go. So I've set the column status back to processing, and there's that invoice that I have just emailed in. So at this stage, I can view the attachment like so. I can see that it is processing, and it will then give us the process status as it's going through. So we'll be able to see exactly what's happening with it. And if we keep refreshing on there, eventually it will move off this screen because it's been processed. It's just going through capture. In fact, yep, it is done. So that's no longer in the processing. It's now gone to process. And if I go back into my iCompleat, then after a period of time, we should then see we've got our little banner pop up at the bottom right telling us that a new invoice has come into the system. So that is a rundown through the capture system, and there we are. There's the invoice coming now. So if everything is fine and correct with the invoices, as you can see, it can be very quick to have an invoice come in. But the key thing is to encourage suppliers to send an intelligent PDF. Don't keep changing the layouts. Have fields clearly marked, totals clearly marked. And if it is the situation of handwritten invoices, then using that invoice template to be able to send those invoices in will put you in good stead to get it processed a lot quicker. So let me find my screens again. And oops, wrong way around. It was doing this just before we started. Let's swap these around. There we go. So hopefully that has given you a better understanding of capture and how that works. So before we jump into any questions, just want to quickly mention the Compleat ecosystem. It's our built-in supplier network that connects businesses with trusted providers across a huge range of industries. So whether you're looking for office supplies, financial solutions, or specialized services, the ecosystem makes it seamless to find, connect with, and buy from the best suppliers without all the usual hassle. What you see here is just a small snapshot of the many suppliers available through our platform, and obviously there's Enterprise Rent-A-Car who have kindly sponsored this session for us. So at this point, I will open the floor up and see if we have any questions. He says if he can find the question and answers box. There we go. So let me open these up. And okay, so I haven't got anything coming through at the moment. I'll just let my screen refresh, but certainly some of the most common questions that we get is obviously if the users themselves can amend the templates. Unfortunately, that's not something that is possible, but just dropping a support ticket in to the support desk, and they'll change the format for you. Oh, in fact, just had the questions come through. So if an invoice is in the correct format, what would be the reasons for this not going through? So that could be a whole multitude of different reasons. We'd need to look at each individual case, but it could be intelligent, non-intelligent, all the things that mentioned before. Basically, it could be that there wasn't the correct indicator on the document. So one of the other key things is that the system will be looking for indicators, which would be things like the word invoice or the word credit note. That very quickly determines it's an invoice, I need to process it. If it's picking up a statement, then obviously iCompleat doesn't process statements, so it would be looking to forward that on to the error email address. But again, if the system's kicking out a genuine invoice or credit note when it shouldn't do, support will be able to help and advise why that happened, and they'll also be able to work with capture to correct it so that it does then get processed for you. So another question I got, is it possible to set up rules for different suppliers, i.e. to set up quantities on multiple lines as one? So again, that would depend very much on the invoice layout itself, as to whether capture can process that automatically. It might be that it needs to actually have the supplier provide that number one. With that one, what I suggest is, again, if you can get a copy of the invoice, then send that into support and ask them if there's anything that they can have capture do to help with that one. So another question, sent rather than an invoice. And so if you know, for example, a supplier statement has been sent rather than an invoice and is in the processing cycle, is there a way to stop this process and delete? So yes, certainly there. So if a statement has crept in and is incomplete and currently going through the system, then yes. What I would do is, again, log support ticket, ask support to make sure that capture is set to not process those. And then with the invoice statement as it is currently in the system, I would be recalling it. So from the submitted tray, going to the documents and timeline, hitting recall to bring it back to unprocessed, and then from processed, either hovering over the line, clicking on the little icon that appears midway through that line, selecting delete from there, or going in and then actions delete to remove that from the queue. Another one here, iCompleat will never, will iCompleat ever let us amend the VAT? VAT rounding can be 1 to 2 pence out. Will there ever be an option to amend this for the likes of direct debit payments coming out? So yes, I would imagine what's happening here is the system in the background has variances configured, and by default, if activated, it will be 3 pence. So I suspect what's happening here is that the invoice has come in, the rounding, as you can see, is 1 or 2 pence out. That's within the variance, and so what's happening is the system is automatically dealing with that for you. But if you would like to process the invoice so it is exact, then what you need to do is go into the layouts and switch off the variance setting. And then what that will do is every invoice where there is a rounding difference, it will then ask you to correct that. The reason that that variance is set as a 3 pence default was because after much consultation with customer base, it was felt that the move to defaulted to 3 pence allow the invoices to go through in the long run is a far cheaper for the customers rather than have staff chasing these 1 or 2 Ps. But if you do need to or would like to have it so that you are processing the exact invoices, then just removing that variance setting will allow you to amend those, and you'll find that it will come up with, do you want to auto correct, manually correct, etc. But on the help site, there's some good guidance on that. But again, support would always be happy to help. Excellent. Okay, so let me just see if we've got any others. Yeah, looks like we've got some more coming through, which is fantastic. Can you show how the VAT can be amended? I will certainly see. Let's so it looks like I've answered everything so far. So let me see. I did have, in fact, I think it's this one here. So here we are. So I've got this invoice here. Funnily enough, I was playing with it yesterday. So I've sent an invoice through where I have purposefully played about with the VAT. So even though it's 20%, VAT should have been £20. It's calculated to £20 and a penny. Who knows why, but we are where we are. So we've got a total up here, £120 and a penny. The system is complaining because, quite rightly so, it doesn't balance. So even if I go and choose my tax code, click on save, it will update the VAT amount, but you can see it's still complaining. And it's this red banner up at the top. So this is the key thing that we are looking for when these issues happen. Now, for those who have this variance activated on the layout, you won't see this bar. So if I come out, and I'll do it in reverse, if I come out of my invoice, go into the layout, so it's the configuration layouts, and then into the layout itself. So this is only accessible to administrators of the system. But if I use this variance tab to put the variance back on, you can see it's defaulting to 3 pence. We can increase it, decrease it. And now I've completely messed it up. Let's put that 0.03. You can have a percentage or a value. But if I activate my tax difference and save that, and then go back into the invoice, you will find that the red bar no longer appears because the difference is within that 3 pence variance. The system's going to take care of it automatically for me. So if we did want to set it to be exact, obviously what we'd have to do is reverse what I've just done. So this is probably where you would be actioning this. You'd be going to configuration, into layouts and invoices, and then removing that variance setting like so. I think we're straddling two topics today. You're getting two for the price of one. Not that you pay for these ones anyway, they're all free, obviously. But yeah, two topics for the price of one. So into invoices, and you will see that in the invoice, it's now providing that banner. And if I click on there, this is where the magic then happens. So I've got these four options. So autocorrect, that will process through the original line totals. So the totals that have come from the invoice, it will push those through. Accept the difference, that will push these totals through. So the calculated line values will be sent. So autocorrect is going to ask me, where do I want that 1 penny difference to be posted? So I can choose which line, and it will ensure that those are the values that are sent across into my finance platform. Accept the difference will send those values as calculated by iCompleat. Manually correct the totals will take me back to be able to edit the invoice. And then this new option that's coming recently, header level extraction. This is for multi-line invoices. And so if the VAT rounding difference has occurred because the supplier has listed each line individually and then calculated VAT on each line individually and then added up that VAT to produce the VAT total, that can cause a rounding difference as opposed to having all of the nets and then calculating VAT on that net total. And if that's happened, then what we can do is head level extraction will convert everything. So it basically consolidates all of the lines. It will take all of the multiple lines from the invoice, consolidate it down to one line, and then process the VAT calculation on the total net value. And that's what that one is. But as I said, key to getting access to those in this red banner is through the layouts and removing that variance setting. So hopefully that was of use. But again, there's guides on the support site if you'd like further information about that. And I think there was a, if I'm thinking correctly, I did a webinar at some point, a lunch and learn some point last year on VAT rounding as well. But obviously, any questions, don't hesitate to contact us. So yes, thank you ever so much for those questions. Were fantastic. I think my screen's up to date and I've got through to every one that has come up. Obviously, if there are any more, don't hesitate to reach out to us. But just leaves me to say thank you ever so much for joining us. If you would like any further help with anything, then obviously there's the support team or there's our success team, contactable at success@completesoftware.com. I'm getting confused with my capturemybills.com emails now. Or we are obviously on LinkedIn. That just leaves me to say thank you ever so much for joining us, and I look forward to seeing you all on our next Lunch and Learn session. Have a great afternoon. Many thanks.